All right, we're going to get started. So I am excited to be here at Identiverse this year and to have Bhavya with me. And I'm John Bennett. I'm the CEO of Dashlane, and Bhavya Gupta is an information security officer at Stanford University. She brings great experience to the conversation. We're going to talk about threats to identity at Stanford University. She joined the university in 2016 after she finished her MBA in cybersecurity engineering at USC, and she also is an advocate for women in security. So we're going to talk about how Stanford approaches protecting the threats to their identity of their 50,000 plus users. But before we, is it going to move? There we go. Before we kind of dive into the topic in terms of your approach and your team's approach to protecting the identity of the 50,000 users, maybe let's start off. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Bhavya, and just how you got into security.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thanks for the introduction. So I joined Stanford 7 years ago. I've done all sorts of security work at Stanford, from data risk assessments to security reviews, incident response to consulting various departments within Stanford on security best practices. I think security is such an interesting field. I did my bachelor's in IT, and I came across this field where I don't have to do the same thing every day, don't have to code every day, and there's something interesting every day. So initially I was interested in forensics, and that's how I got into security. And I'll just say that in the last 6 years, there's never been a dull moment. Like, there's always something new.
Yes, but there's the optimistic side of what we do in our daily life in this space, and then there's also the threat vectors we deal with.
Right. So now I lead the Cloud Security and Vulnerability Management program at Stanford, responsible for minimizing our attack surface.
Awesome. So before we dive into the topic in terms of just the granularity of the threat surface and the type of attacks, I thought it would be good. Are you guys getting feedback in the room? We're getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if I need to switch to a different mic or... I'm good? Okay, perfect. Thank you. I know it wasn't just me. But before we sort of dive into the topic, it would be great if you could, tell us a little bit about, I think we're all familiar with Stanford University as a prestigious university. In our conversations, I was blown away by sort of the size and the scope of the number of users that you have to protect. So maybe give us a little bit of background in terms of what sort of the size and complexity of the user group is at Stanford that you deal with.
Yeah, all right. So let's talk about the organization first. Stanford isn't just any university. We are a huge educational and research institution with a lot of endowment, student tuition, students from all over the world, 2 hospitals, children's and adult, and a lot of collaboration with third parties and startups. We have all sorts of data one can think of for research, and all sorts of cybersecurity compliance and regulations apply to us because of that. To give you some specific numbers, we have around 17,000 students on campus, 13,000 staff and faculty, and on top of that, we have visiting scholars and researchers that join us over the year, so making the 15,000 number, so that makes it very complex. So I think a huge physical footprint plus such a diversity of people really makes it complex to handle IT.
That's like a very scaled and diverse organization. I think if we think about the enterprise customers we deal with at Dashlane, it's just like that's on a different scale in terms of that level of users and diversity of users. And I think another maybe click down on that would be when we talk about identity, we often I think overlook who we're actually trying to protect, which is the people in the organization. And these people in the organization, they occupy a variety of different roles. They all exhibit different behaviors in the organization. And I would think at Stanford, the different levels of sophistication of their understanding of technology is vastly different. And at the end of the day, those are the people we're trying to secure and protect those identities. So I would love to hear a little bit of your thoughts in terms of what your approach is to protecting that diverse set of users at Stanford University.
Yeah, so when we talk about scales, we have Stanford students trying to use latest and greatest of the technology. At the same time, we have researchers and faculty members trying to, faculty members running
Went the wrong way.
the oldest systems, right? Sorry, yeah. So I think that's a very good question on what an identity really means and what are we trying to protect nowadays. So we have people with credentials that can be protected through, say, multi-factor authentication, IP restrictions and monitoring them, or using password manager tools to make sure they're not reusing passwords. But in our environment, we have a lot of shared secrets now, API keys, tokens, that are not given enough security measures and can lead to huge breaches. So I think at Stanford, protecting such a diverse population, there's no silver bullet to secure it all. I think we need to make security something that can be adopted rather than enforced. That's why education and awareness is one of our main focus areas, especially around credential management. Having said that, we also know that opt-in security doesn't work, so we try to put in controls wherever we can. Say when people move from one organization to another, we change their controls, access controls around things, and through work groups, that's what we call it. We constantly try to improve on our detections around compromises and anomalies that we see. So that's how we try to figure out how to protect such a diverse population.
Yeah. So I think maybe like a click down on that is, what are the type of threats, that you're focused on? And, we talk about, 17,000 students, 13,000 faculty. And is there any difference in terms of the approach you have to take? Is there any different in the behaviors that those users exhibit? But maybe talk a little bit, I think would be good for this audience, is like, what are the type of threats that you're dealing with?
Mm-hmm. So I think threats in our organization really vary from nation-state actors trying to attack Stanford to find out what research we are doing from various different countries in the world. And then we have hobbyists. We have students trying to just cause reputational harm and trying to get into so many of Stanford websites and deface them. I don't think I have a way to differentiate on different types of threats on, say, facing students, faculty, and staff. Phishing still remains our number one threat that we see. I think we have around 2 to 3 accounts that get compromised every day due to some sort of phishing email, and that does not include the big phishing campaigns that happen. So the number is way more for those phishing campaigns. We do see different types of phishing targeting different individuals. Say, for example, we see a lot of paid internship scams or job scams facing our student population, and then we see pension schemes and direct deposit scams targeted towards our faculty members.
Is there any seasonality? Freshman students coming. Is there seasonality? Do you see spikes in sort of those campaigns?
We do. So summertime we see a lot of job scams and internship scams. Direct deposit scams are I think throughout.
Okay.
And so whether every time there's something in the news, obviously people use that to scam people, click on links.
And they're only becoming more sophisticated,
Exactly.
and the velocity, is increasing, and like the barrier to entry for malicious actors is lower.
Very low.
It's becoming commoditized, and you can just go to a marketplace and you can assemble these tools, and you can go attack, Stanford University.
Exactly.
I always feel that, in talking to our customers around the world and just reflecting back on the organizations I've been involved in is, we don't always get it right, and there's always these learning moments in terms of like things that we learn, so it'd be good to maybe click down, and I think we have a slide on this, which is, what are some of the common incidents that you face, and where you can sort of identify that root cause analysis. How is Stanford sort of like improving upon, the security posture from, some of these events that are successful?
Mm-hmm. I think with the rising cyber attacks, so many cloud threats, social engineering schemes, there is a lot to worry about. But if I have to drill it down to one incident root cause, I'm going to say human error. That's on the bottom of this screen. In the past 1 year, I think most of our incidents have occurred because of some sort of human error or the unaware user. That's what I like to call it. Whether it's clicking on a link, accidentally getting your credentials phished, or sharing sensitive data publicly by mistake. So it really comes down to human error and how much data they have access to. Like especially students, like they have access to so much of research data, and a little mistake can just lead to a breach.
And are, based on, like some of these examples of, students having access to this proprietary, research, data, are there changes, in either hardening of systems or making it more difficult before they, share that, data inadvertently externally? Are there sort of systems or processes you've put in place based on those events?
Yeah, I think we constantly try to improve on our security measures we have around access management. Say we have the password management tool, right? Helps people manage their own passwords and credentials, and we want to make sure they're not reusing the same password, say, around
Right.
different platforms. We have our own implementation of passkeys. We call it cardinal key. We have the best-in-class email security tools so that we make sure we get the metrics
and try to stop those phishing.
Trying to stop phishing emails. We have good endpoint detection and responses in play, and we are just constantly trying to do more and more awareness campaigns to let people know that, hey, like this is the right thing to do, and this is how you do it.
Right. So it's because it's interesting. One of the reports I read every year is that Verizon breach report that comes out every year, and there was like a quote in there where it's easier to harden the systems than it is to harden the employees' behavior. But I think it's both.
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
I think it's both, because opt-in security doesn't work, so we need to put in the controls in place, and I think we are our own worst enemy. So only technical controls can help protect us from ourselves. So that's something we try to do.
Got it. And so, I think again, maybe just we've got a little bit of information here, which I think you've covered a little bit. But these are I think the most common insider threats that you face at Stanford University. Are there any others that you want to sort of maybe highlight?
I think insider threat is a big one for us because we have a huge turnover. Like new researchers keep coming, so it's not like a corporate where you'll have say like a constant type of people, right? So we have to really educate different types of users using different ways, and it's a problem that we are still trying to figure out a solution for.
I mean, that's kind of the challenge, right? Like
Yeah.
you have like 4,000 students that you have new users come in every year.
Exactly.
Plus researchers and adjunct professors. So
Right.
that's got to be a challenge, right?
Yep.
In terms of the organization.
And then I think another challenge is cloud. So every student has their cloud where they put their data. So security controls around that. So one thing that we are trying to do is bring all cloud accounts into one organization so that we can put security controls and we can monitor them and we can scan them for vulnerabilities. But at a huge organization like Stanford, it's even harder to find out where the cloud accounts are and bring them into one organization. So
they're doing a
that,
project and they just spin up an account.
Yeah, we have our Stanford organization where they can create their own GCP, AWS, or other cloud accounts. But I mean, they could do their own thing as well. So that's something that worries me.
Got it.
I see as a big threat.
Got it. And one of the things I know that there's an enormous amount of I think there's an enormous amount of conversation around passkeys, right, at Identiversus, and I attended RSA, I attend a lot of public and private events, and passkeys is it's a big topic, and Dashlane, we're an active member of the FIDO Alliance, and there's so much benefit certainly to passkeys. A lot of focus in the consumer space, but I think the other thing that's important here is that passkeys aren't the only path to eliminating passwords in your organization, right? Like at Dashlane, we support passkeys within the credential vault, but in terms of eliminating the password for logging into our consumer app, we took a different approach, different sort of technology approach internally to improve the security posture of that solution and remove friction for the employees. And I know that you touched on that briefly around cardinal key, but I know at Stanford, again, you just eliminated passwords for your staff, and you took a different approach. So maybe it'd be useful to share with this audience a little bit about the solution you went with and just a little bit of background on that.
Yeah, so we have our own implementation of passwordless authentication. We call it the cardinal key. So it's a digital certificate that gets installed on your machine. So I think it's helping us achieve three things. One is it helping us save from credential phish. Second, and I think something very important now with so many people working remotely, is it's helping us with endpoint security. So what we've done is we've tied cardinal key, the digital certificate, to device compliance. So a cardinal key can only be installed on your device if your device is compliant. So you need to have, say, MDM running on your mobile phone, or your device has to be encrypted. So we have a list of things that we check for before installing the cardinal key, and the key is per user and then per device. So you can have multiple keys for yourself, like for every device. And I think third is usability. People love not having to put their passwords or remembering their username passwords.
Or writing it down on a sticky note.
Or writing it down. So
maybe on their laptop.
So yeah, so I think it's been great. Like we have it on our VPN as well. So digital certificate for VPN and for logging into the Stanford system.
Got it. And how many, again, was that across all 13,000, or was there like a phased rollout for Cardinal Key?
It was definitely a phased rollout. So we rolled it out to the IT environment first, and then we slowly mandated it across different types of people. So
Lost our AV guy. I don't know if it's my mic or maybe I'll move further away from you. Maybe that's the issue.
So we have mandated it for staff right now. So they have to use a cardinal key.
Got it. You know, I think about what's going on in the industry today, and you know, we're going to get to a question around AI, because how can you have a talk without talking about like generative AI? But you know, every year I read the different data in terms of the increased velocity of the threat vectors, that 80% of breaches are still being driven by compromised identity. They're becoming more sophisticated. The social engineering is becoming more sophisticated, and so there's a lot to be like fearful of in the industry. But I also look at what's happening at Identiverse and the conversations we're having here about eliminating passwords, and there's a lot to be hopeful about as well. And I'd love your perspective of like what are you most hopeful about over the next year or two in terms of identity and security?
I think for identity, I'd like to say zero trust model in identity. So identity decisions based on a confluence of signals, and giving only that much access as needed at a given time and no further. I think that would be really nice. Another thing I'd like to say is identity management as a service. So I think a service like that would really help organizations, big and small, adopt changes or advancements in identity very quickly, because I think IAM is so foundational and so big to an organization that once people implement it, they don't want to change it. They don't want to mess with it or just want to stay away. So an identity management as a service will help help organizations quickly step on new and future advancements.
That reminds. I don't know who stayed through and saw the poet on the opening session, but I love that sort of concept of going through and looking at your systems or looking at your processes and what do you erase? What do you how do you think differently? And I think that's something we all have to do in the industry, is look at like what do we think we have to live with, but we don't necessarily have to. It's holding us back from innovation and getting to a better place. So I read a ton about what's going on with the large language models. it's in the news every day, sometimes multiple times a day in terms of what's happening with generative AI. I think we all know in this space it's already being weaponized. It's already being weaponized by malicious actors, and it's just scary what's up on Hugging Face, and gosh, don't like download stuff from there. Just don't. But I think every organization, I mean, we're looking internally, what's our policy, what's our position around the use and implementation of generative AI and Dashlane. And, I'd love maybe a closing question for you, which is, what are you thinking about in terms of your organization, in terms of the implications of generative AI? Because certainly Stanford's at the forefront in terms of some of the research around that as well.
Right. Yeah, so as you said, like Stanford is in the forefront of a lot of generative AI transformation and building models. One thing that we did very quickly, because we knew that students would want to use the latest technology, plugins, and researchers would want to know how to use LLMs, we published a responsible AI page. So basically we published our baseline guidelines. It's called responsibleai.stanford.edu. CISA and NIST, they came out with their AI roadmap as well recently. So we are keeping a close eye on that to see what they come out with, and then incorporating those in our environment. So I think data governance and AI go hand in hand. It's very important to understand what data is being fed to LLM.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that we get it right, because people are using a lot of data for research in AI. So we want to have policies around it, around governance. And then, as you said, AI tools are getting more sophisticated, especially around identity. It's becoming easier to compromise people's identity and access. So I'm just hopeful that our tools will also get smarter, and then we'll have AI defensive tools, because I think AI can only counter AI and try to neutralize the attackers.
Awesome. I think we have time for one or two questions if people have questions. So great.
How often do y'all do phishing simulations? What's the click rate? And do you think your phishing simulations are advanced, or are you still kind of trying to catch up?
So we are doing phishing campaigns every week. Every week for users, and then if you don't click, it's bi-weekly. So we keep changing, and then for repeat people, we do it every week. Click rates, I think click rates is different for different departments, so I won't be able to give you exact numbers right now, maybe after this talk. And I think they've gotten way better. Our phishing campaigns have gotten better. We were doing more general campaigns. Now I see they've become more sophisticated in terms of different types of emails for different population, and for researchers, students. So that's what we try to do.
Once a week?
But then if you don't click, you don't receive it. So if you're clicking, you're receiving it every week. So yeah, so it's for the repeat users. Yeah.
That's way more frequent than we do them.
How much? What do you guys do?
I don't know how often we use a third-party software that integrates with our email system, and also we use Slack, and so it does both the simulation, and you then get remedial training if you click on it, and then it also does sort of self-driven awareness training as well in conjunction with the campaigns that we run.
I'm a student, what I should have access to. So do you govern that? Does someone certifies that, okay, this student should have only access to this data or research, or is it automated by tool?
Definitely, for staff and employees, we have work groups. So if you're a part of a certain work group, that's dependent on the department you are in. So your access is defined by that. For students, it's professors deciding, okay, what resources the students need to have access to. But again, it's
It's got a
because
mind of
there's
its
so
own.
many
Sorry, I'm
like
trying to get to our last slide, but
I
it's
see
like
people sharing, students especially sharing things through say cloud, and it's just hard to do a governance around it.
I know.
So
I think we're at time. They got the doors open. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Sorry about the audio feedback. I don't know what